Our next guest on the pod is a amazing member of our pod fam. We met her back at ADU. She was a guest earlier this year for episode 93, and she had a wicked big year planned with lots of goals, but that all changed shortly after her life took a turn and a few marathons went on hold. She's back to fill us all in and share her journey along this wild year she's had. Candice Burroughs, welcome back, unfortunately, to the On the Runs podcast.
Unfortunately, fortunately, I love you guys. So, doing this with you and sharing with others is what this is all about. So I'm glad to be here under the circumstances.
We are so happy to see you. Your beautiful smiling face.
Thanks.
But yes, we wish it was under different circumstances. But welcome back nonetheless.
Thank you.
So a lot has happened. Like, we got your whole story back on episode 93. You were going to Tokyo. You were going to run Boston. Weren't you going to do another marathon this fall? You were like on track to be the fastest person
you had
ever.
Berlin on deck.
Yeah, you were on track to get your 6th star this year.
Right?
Yeah, that was the goal. But, whenever I think I have control of a situation, God goes, nope, you don't. And that's where you come to reality and say, okay, things have now changed. So, yeah, it's been a year for sure. A lot of ups and downs and triumphant moments and sad moments, and hard moments and painful ones, but I'm still smiling. So that tells you something. And I think that this whole thing this year is really a big mental game. It's staying positive, and even on the moments where you don't feel positive, it's you just got to dig deep and find what waking up every day is all about, and it's very grateful and a blessing to have. So
I love your attitude, Candice, and your positivity. It does really shine through. I feel it. Eric feels it. Everybody listening feels it. And I just hope that inside you really do feel it, because you have the whole pod fam and listeners behind you. Anything we can do for you, we love you.
Thank you. Yeah, no, I truly do believe it in my heart. I don't think that I could have gotten through these past 5 months without it. I go to Tokyo. I'm on this hiatus of running a marathon across the world, and the whole thing of this trip was awesome. I don't have a dull moment. It was just an amazing country to visit. The race was awesome. And I can't remember if it's like the day before the marathon or after, when I felt the lump in my breast. Like I remember picking my girls up, putting them in my bra. My friend Liz and I are in the hotel room together, and I felt something really painful. And I was like, wow, that's weird. And then I looked at her and I was like, I could feel it. I was like, wow, that's really big. So, but my year was crazy. My daughter had an OCD lesion in her knee. She was diagnosed with that in the end of December last year. So right around Christmas, she was on full-time crutches and having surgery in January. I'm getting ready I have a 12-week training plan to run Tokyo and travel to Japan. So I was not doing self-breast exams every day. I wasn't doing it. My focus was on my family and training. It wasn't on me necessarily. So yeah, I felt that. And then when I came home, I had my husband kind of put his hands around my breast on both sides. And I said, can you check me? Do you feel something?
This is after Tokyo.
What was that?
This is after Tokyo.
Yep. I flew home and I did that the day after I got back. And because Scott is a realist, right? He's very calm and mellow. And I'm the eccentric, crazy one sometimes. So we're a good yin and yang. And I knew if he felt something there, he would be like, oh, you're making a big a big thing out of this. And I'm like, okay. But he felt it and his eyebrows flew up. And he went, I would probably go get this looked at. So that's where the snowball started to happen. And, within 3 weeks, I was diagnosed with triple negative breast cancer, stage 2.
That all happened so fast.
So fast. It was like, I go in, see my OBGYN. She calls a mammogram for me. I go in for the mammogram. I go in and get that done. I go sit in the waiting room. They call me back in for another set of scans for another mammogram. I go back in the waiting room. Now I'm being brought down for an ultrasound, go in for the ultrasound, sit up. The tech comes up and says, just give me 5 minutes. And then a whole team of people walk in.
Oh, wow.
And I'm like,
what's going through your head?
This is aggressive. I went alone that day thinking nothing.
Yeah.
My OBGYN, I had just had a mammogram 5 months before. So when my
Oh.
OBGYN called in the mammogram for me, she's tapping me on the shoulder and goes, I don't think it's breast cancer. You know?
Yeah.
Mhm.
Optimistic.
Yeah, because the majority of tumors are benign. It's not common that they're always breast cancer. So it was
Oh.
she was very true to say that, because that is what you say to someone until you don't want to get your patient nervous.
Yeah, the
And
panic would set in.
of course,
Mhm.
so I go in, they come in and they tell me I have a large solid nodule. So at that point, I'm like, break this down. Like, what do you mean? What are you saying to me?
Yeah.
And so I said, what's considered large? What's large? What's solid versus not solid? And they broke them all down. And that was a Tuesday. And they told me to come in Friday for the biopsy. So
Mhm.
that literally happened within a week and a half after I flew home. So
Oh,
I'm on this
wow.
hiatus of running the race, coming home from Japan, telling my family and friends about how great it was, and then getting smacked in the face with the reality that something really big could be going on here. And,
Mhm.
Yeah.
you know,
All right. Well, let's
Didn't you
slow down for a second.
sure.
February 6th, you wake up 4 a.m. You have this amazing episode drop, your first ever podcast. Everyone loves you. Everyone's like, oh my God, Candice is amazing. It was March 3rd was the Tokyo Marathon. So now everyone's following your journey and you meet Jared in Tokyo and all
Yep.
this stuff happens so
Yeah.
fast. But I actually want to know, before we get into these deep details, as you know the rule, spare no details.
Yep.
I want to hear about the Tokyo Marathon. How
Yeah,
did
tell us
that
something
go?
good, Candice.
Yes.
Sure. Let's
Go
talk
for
about all
some
the
good
fun
stuff.
stuff.
Let's
Please.
start with the flight and who was on your flight.
Sure. So I flew into the Delta hub from here to there, and I saw that Jared and I had connected because I had listened to his podcast episode. He listened to mine,
Mhm.
and we were talking, and I was like, dude, this is like, your story's unreal. I thought it was such a great down to earth story. It was so believable in every aspect. You really felt the emotion as he told it. So we connected and talked a couple times, and then we found out we were both running Tokyo. So when he posted that he was in the airport, I'm like, hey, are you in blah blah blah? And he's like, yeah. And I'm like, that's where I'm coming to. So like, we were on the same flight. It was the
No way.
craziest thing. So I get into the airport and I'm kind of looking around. I don't see him anywhere. Go into the ladies' room. I come out and he's standing right there.
You wouldn't
No
find him in the
way.
ladies' room, by the way. No
He
way
was
would he be in the
outside the
ladies'.
ladies' room. Yes, he was not in the ladies'
He's
room.
a gentleman. He wouldn't
He
do it.
absolutely. So he's standing there, and I got to say, he looks taller in person than he did online. So I was like, "Oh my God." I was like, "Hey." And we just talked until we got on the plane, and he was explaining to me how he had like a compression sleeve for flying because of his leg and needing some comfort. And so he was only like 2 rows ahead of me, 3 rows ahead of me on the plane. And I would go check on him because I knew that he was probably in some discomfort. It's a long flight.
Yeah.
So after that, we kind of lost each other in the airport, but then Liz and I connected with him throughout the week and had brunch with him one morning. And then we walked around Tokyo together, and it was really cool. We took a picture together at what is the crossing called?
Shibuya Crossing.
So
Yes.
like I wore my On the Run shirt there. That's where we took those photos and sent them to you guys because we had to bring the pod to Tokyo. I mean,
You
why
guys are
not?
wonderful.
It was like, I packed that shirt knowing that at some point I was wearing it and you guys were there with us no matter what. So it was really cool to meet him and hang out with him and get to know him better,
Excellent. Oh, I'm so glad that you guys were able to connect.
Yeah.
I think that's just wild that you guys happen to be on the same flight though. What are the odds of that actually happening?
Yeah, it was super
That
cool.
happened more than once on that trip, actually. Do you remember who was on Rachel's flight?
That was Bex. Yeah, Bex was on Rachel's flight.
Come
So
on.
we had 4 pod fan members on the same flights. So you and Jared and Rachel and Bex were all on the same
Wow.
flights to Tokyo.
I love it. That's so cool. Yeah. Yeah, we meet up all throughout the world, guys. That's what we do. Like,
It's wonderful. I'm
it's
glad
not
that
just
the podcast has reach,
it's
especially
not
all the way
just a
across the
stationary thing,
world.
for sure.
Mhm.
And then this year, 3 pod fan members are all going to be doing the 777.
That's
7
more
marathons,
wild.
7 days, 7 continents.
And who's doing this?
That's Bex Gentry, Ashley Paulson and Justin Spencer from Recycled Percussion.
That is sick. I love it. And so our friend Jen Smith that you guys have met. All right.
Oh,
so
I love
Jen
Jen.
and I, we're brewing this whole 777 in the next couple of years. Her and I keep talking about how that might be our biggest accomplishment and goal. Ooh. So we'll see like how things transpire, but we keep talking about it.
If you need anybody else, let me know, because I totally would do that.
Yeah.
I would run and Sherpa, so
but she wouldn't get you. Well, maybe she would. Maybe by then she'll be like really good at content.
Are you kidding? Oh, wow. I would not be the content queen.
It's $45,000 to do that.
Isn't it ridiculous? I mean, yeah.
It's
at a minimum.
At a minimum, but you get your own plane. Everything is all taken care of. So I feel like
it would be the experience of a lifetime.
That's exactly. That's why it's like you're really paying for that. I think that.
Oh yeah.
Does that include your crew?
Yeah.
Oh, does it?
Okay. Okay, Candice.
Sure it does.
So if you and Jen do it, we just want each of you to take one of us as your crew.
Okay, we'll have to look into this.
She's like, no, I'm not taking you.
This is like breeding we're going to have to look into this. This is interesting. Okay.
I feel like Jared's got an in before we do. And then I don't know who Jen would bring, but
Jared's doing that now. So why not just do it on every continent?
Yeah. Jared should be running the race, not being crew.
He literally just hit his 17th state like this past weekend.
He's of the year. Unstoppable, this guy.
It's unbelievable. But yeah, so talking about the race. So Tokyo was everything and anything I would have thought it was. You never leave the city, which I know you ran it the year before I did, Erica, and you literally just run down. Now the back and forth, I have to admit, the back outs.
They were a little arduous, but still cool to keep seeing everybody.
It was very cool. Actually, there's one area. So this is a funny part. So I get to mile 9 to 10. Where you turn and you're kind of going down here, and I hear the crowd screaming their head off. And I'm like, oh, look at all these people yelling for us. And I didn't realize that Iliad was right on the side of me running in the opposite direction.
No.
So I look over and it's like, he just flies by. And I was like, oh, they weren't cheering for me. I was like, oh, bummer. So all of us were like, yeah. And then we look over and here he comes with all the elites. So he was like maybe 10 feet from me. It was so cool to actually see. You watch him online, you see how fast he is, but not until you're right on the side of him. And you actually see him go right by you. It was such a cool moment. But yeah, the race was amazing. I actually fell at mile 18.
Oh no.
There was a moment where there was no proper running etiquette. This guy just decides in the middle of the race to get down on the ground and tie his shoelace.
Sounds like a Disney race.
It was like,
just from what I'm told, not my own experience.
Yeah, so I'm city looking. I'm looking around. I'm enjoying the city, which is supposed to be, and then I look in front of me, and this ass hat is on the ground in front of me about 4 feet ahead, and I'm full out running. So I go and I had to jump over him, and my knee smacked him in the back of his head, and my left
deservingly so.
My left foot went this way, and I was like, I lost my toenail, my big toenail. Like I lost it. It's only just really starting to grow back now since March, like probably because of chemo, everything slows down, nothing heals right. But yeah, and after that, I kept feeling my hip pop. I kept feeling my hip go over and over. And I was on course to have a PR. I was actually crushing it at that point where I was so solidly happy with everything. And then I had to be conservative and slow down. And I didn't get my PR, but I got my medal and I got the experience, and that was worth it. But if it wasn't for that guy, Lord knows what I would have done that day, but I'm very happy to walk away with what I went there to do, and that was to finish. So
all I can say is you were you were just such a nice person to only call him an asshat. I would have been like, beep, 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 beep. Like,
I mean, honestly,
would you though?
I was so
probably.
Would you really?
I could think of some choice words
to his
for that
face?
guy. Not to his face, but like if I'm just talking to you, I would have unleashed.
Yeah, I was so mad. Like I remember jumping, and then once I realized I had caught myself and I didn't actually end up on the ground like I thought I would, I turned around and I was like, "What the? Pull over, dude! Like who does that? Who just gets down in the middle of the race when you have thousands of people running by you. Like, that will never make sense to me. And
An ass hat.
yeah, and then I want to
Total
turn
ass.
around and be like, you just cost me all these weeks of training, dude. Like, what the frick? So, but yeah, I did slow up. I did take it easy the rest of the way because I was afraid I was going to do long-term damage. I knew I had Boston like 4 or 5 weeks later, and then Berlin at the mid-year. So I was like, I really can't jeopardize. So I slowed down and took it easy and enjoyed it. And yeah.
Well, at least
Little
you got
did
to
you
do
know you
that.
actually had
Look up a
cancer.
star.
I did not know I had cancer. It's funny because like at mile 23, I felt an utter, like a very large gust of exhaustion like I had never felt before. So I put it towards the fact that I wasn't sleeping good. I was on a time change.
Yeah.
I was nervous for the marathon. You never sleep that great the night before. But I have a feeling that that was my body's way of telling me that you are a little compromised because I did not ever feel that feeling until I felt that moment. It was I felt very drawn. I felt very leadish in my feet. I normally don't feel that way at 23. I just feel sore and tired. This felt different. So that might have been my body kind of telling me, you know what, girl, I think you've hit your max. And I just cruised in. I saw my charity, which was cool. They oh my God, they were amazing. So yeah, it was an amazing race. So much fun.
Which charity did you run for again?
So I did the Golden Network. It was a children's cancer fundraising charity. The majority of the ones I have ran for were involved with cancer. So I'm very happy that I did that for those kids. So yeah.
Good for you. I'm proud of you.
Yeah.
So proud of you.
So now we can fly back home. Your husband can check yourself. The doctor checks you. She says, I don't think it's breast cancer. It's probably benign.
Yep.
Now talk me through leaving Tokyo to the Boston Marathon.
Okay. So I found out after the biopsy was on a Friday. Of course, that's great to do something like that on a Friday because now you got to wait all weekend. So I just filled the weekend with family, friends, kept myself busy. Monday comes around, nothing. Tuesday, I'm at work and I get my results before my doctor calls. It loads right into your My Chart.
Oh, okay.
So
did you look at them and what?
Yeah.
Oh no.
I did look at it and it said, you know, that I had a 3.3 centimeter. And this is what's crazy. And we can explain how much this grows. So I had the biopsy on that Friday. So it was what, the 23rd, 22nd. So that was the biopsy date. Goes to the lab. We get the results back on that Tuesday of the 26th. And it says invasive ductal carcinoma. So now I know it's invasive. It's moved from the origin where it started. But it's a very common one. It's the one that starts in the milk duct, and that I already kind of did some research. So now I know I have cancer. So I looked at my phone. I was in my office alone. I did cry for a few minutes because I was like, my life is so different. It's never going to be the same. And then I called my husband and I was like, I told him, and he was like, it's okay. He's like, we're going to figure it out. It's going to be okay. So I said, okay. And then my doctor's office called later that day. And then that whole saying of hurry up and wait started. Because you can ask any woman, any man that's been through this, the hurry up and wait is a real thing. You just want to know what's going on so that you can get it all done and moving, but you've got to wait for everything to get done. And that is the most frustrating thing but once things start to roll, it rolls real fast. Okay. So I got the diagnosis. I met with my surgeon. She told me what my stage was. I was stage 2A, and they it was 3.3 centimeters, but by the time I had an MRI the week later, it was already 4.4 centimeters. So it had already grown 1 centimeter within a week.
Oh no.
And
that's very fast.
It's probably why that mammogram I had 5-6 months earlier showed nothing. And then it had grown to the size that it did in such a short amount of time.
Wow.
So then I go in, I find out what my treatment plan is, met my oncologist, and they tell me that you're going to go through 12 rounds of chemo with immunotherapy because triple negative breast cancer is a very aggressive type, and you don't have any positive hormone receptors Okay. So typically some women have them and don't. And that's how they know how to treat the tumor. What's feeding the tumor is how
Oh.
they're able to navigate how to treat you. So, they went through all of that with me, and then they told me I'd be going in for port surgery, and we didn't know the date of that. So
Mm-hmm.
we come up to the week of Boston. I know I'm running Boston Monday. I am planning my weekend with Jen and Jared and friends.
Yep.
And then Thursday, I get the phone call that my port surgery is on Marathon Monday. And I said, can I change it? Is there any way that we
Please
can
give me Tuesday, anything. I don't care.
Right. And then in my mind, I'm like, so if I do the marathon on Monday and then I do the port surgery the day or two after, my body's going to be compromised from the marathon. You know, our numbers are kind of off the charts and probably not the smartest thing to do.
Mm-hmm.
So I went into the Boston weekend knowing that I wasn't running it.
Mm-hmm.
And I was swapping out one marathon for the other.
Because you did ask, but they told you no.
Yeah. I had to get it done.
So that's so tough. But I mean, your health is paramount. A marathon is, you can
always
do it
going to be there
at some point, and you got to take care of yourself. So as much as it hurts to have to give up, especially a marathon like Boston, it was absolutely for the best to get you going on your treatment plan.
Talk about the Boston weekend, the whole expo, because you did all the things. You ran the 5K. You talked to a ton of people, and I think you just told people. And I think you were just telling people like, yes, I'm running, because you were tired of telling them why you weren't running the race. And then tell us about the one person you did run into. And Jared says, it's okay, you can tell her.
Sure. So I ran into a lot of people at the expo, and we saw Allie on the run. We went and sat and watched her on stage, which I really felt like I needed to see her. I had to hear her because this was so new for me and I was scared to death. And she was already going through it, and so strong and positive and so raw and honest about everything she was going through that I felt like I needed to feel and see her energy. So like we went and saw her on the big stage and met a bunch of different people there, met Mary McManus. That was awesome. Got to meet her and Jared and stuff. And we were walking around. And so I'm walking down the road and I run into Marty Clark. I don't know if you guys know Marty Clark, but Marty Clark and I have been following each other for about 5 years since I started to ever really get into running. And him and I just virtually would throw each other good comments on posts. And that's really all it's ever been. Well, I'm walking down Boylston and Marty Clark is standing in front of me. And I go, Marty Clark. And he goes, Candice. He's like, now, Letty is inside the Bank of America bank where the big yellow unicorn head was, and Marty knew her. So I'm walking up to Marty and he's giving me hugs. We're taking pictures, and I go inside to take a picture with the unicorn, and there's Letty standing there. And I recognized her right away. And Jared and I, we all started talking to her, and she was like asking me a couple of things about the race. And she's like, are you running on Monday? And I was like, I felt like we're in such a close-knit space that I was like, I probably should just like tell her I'm not. So she was the only person I really told that I was not running Boston. And she was like, ooh, we might have a podcast episode in the near future. We should definitely talk. And then we connected that weekend, and she's amazing. I absolutely love her. She's
and for those of you who don't recall, Letty Lundquist has the Running Marathon podcast. And she was episode 95 on our podcast just after you. So you, Letty, and Jared were all within like 7 podcast episodes of each other. You're all 3 of you are in the Bank of America together with the golden unicorn taking photos. And it was so cool seeing the pod fam together.
I love that. I love that because I feel like every time I go to something that's pertained to a local big race that I'm going to find one pod family member anywhere we go. And I'm like, it's very uplifting because all of us really look forward to running into each other and catching up, because we have this one podcast episode and then we wonder how each other's really doing behind the scenes of your running posts. So like, it's nice to run into each other and do the catching up. And so, but yeah, it was nice to see Letty. But yeah, the majority of the weekend, I was kind of tired of telling people that I'm not running, because they would go, well, why aren't you running? And then I have to tell everybody what's going on. And to be quite frank, I was very emotional not running on
Absolutely.
Monday and having surgery. And then I knew chemo was coming right after. So like I was kind of over it. I didn't want to talk about it. I wanted to enjoy the weekend, enjoy my
Mhm.
friends,
Oh, I
let
don't
the
blame you at
spirit.
all, Candice.
Yeah, I just was over it. I was like, I just don't want, and also you don't want to be a Debbie Downer when everybody's on the high of Boston.
Yeah.
Who wants to talk about that? Nobody does.
Oh.
Who wants
So
to talk about breast cancer? We're here for the marathon. Like,
Oh.
stop ruining everything for us.
how dare I? So selfish. So, I was like, I'm just not going to do this anymore. But yeah, it was, I did run the New Balance 5K, that Friday night that we got there.
Mhm.
That was super fun. There was a big meet and greet after. So yeah, we had a really great weekend. We went on a couple of tours, met a couple of authors. Like it was really fun.
Yep. You didn't tell a lot of people about you having breast cancer, at least at this time, but you did tell your charity. And what did your charity tell you?
So I was running for the Korean church that is at the Start in Hopkinton. I was
Mhm.
the solo runner for that church, which was
Oh.
really an honor. This lady who does work for the town of Hopkinton has a certain amount of bibs every year that she can disperse. The church asked for a runner to make money, to raise some money for their school there. They have a youth program that they need funds. They have no
Mhm.
money for the kids for school, and so I got to run for them. And when he actually called me when I was at dinner with Jen and Jared and a couple of other friends. The pastor at the church called me and said that he had heard from Dottie, the woman from Hopkinton, that I was just recently diagnosed. And I told him, I said, I'll be coming up to see you this week because I had fundraised money for them and
Yeah.
I wanted to bring it to them. And he was like, that is not the reason for my call. My call was to
Oh.
let you know that we are going to be praying for you on Sunday morning. Is it okay if I bring up your name? He was like, I would like you to keep that for you and your family for whatever you need. I actually still have all that money sitting in my savings. I did not spend a penny of it and I have no plan to.
Mhm.
I plan to give it back to him and hopefully run for them or a breast cancer organization next year for Boston. And then I'm going to surprise them with a gift of, that.
Oh.
So it's in my savings. I haven't touched it.
That is
So
so sweet for both of you that he would
yeah,
that you're still raising money, that he offered to give it back to you. Like that just warms my heart to
yeah, he
some
was
degree. I don't
amazing.
even.
His name is David.
Oh,
He's a really great guy.
oh, David, wonderful.
Yeah. So
Oh,
that was really cool that he had reached out like that. And I didn't know it was him and never talked to him before. So that was
oh.
our first conversation.
That's amazing.
Like I'm like on the verge of tears myself, you guys. Come on.
I know.
Woo.
I can't guarantee that I'm not going to do that by the end because I'm like in
Oh,
this.
you're allowed to.
I seriously, through the first 12 weeks of treatment, I literally was like a warrior, fight hard, let's do it. And then as soon as it was over and we're getting ready for surgery, I'm literally like, I cannot control
Oh,
the emotion. It's like, what did I just
absolutely.
do for 4 months?
I
You
mean, you
know?
have to talk yourself into it. You got to believe you're like, yes, I can do this. But like,
Yeah.
you let your guard down a little bit, and you have to let some of that emotion out. So if you want to
Yeah.
cry, Candace, you cry.
Yeah.
I won't
So
hold it against you.
So take me to Marathon Monday now. You were hoping to run. You don't get to run. You go to the doctors. You get the port. Did you pay attention to the marathon? Did you turn the TV on? Were you tracking your friends or did you stay away from it?
I could not stay away from it. There's no way. So Sunday morning, I woke up knowing that my body was going to be different as of the next day. I have never had surgery, never broke a bone. I've never had,
Oh.
I had a very mild surgery a couple of years ago, but never, nothing like this. And
Uh-huh.
so Sunday was a very emotional day because I knew I wasn't lining up on Monday. I knew that I was not, things were different. So Marathon Monday, I woke up. I had my tracker already set up that weekend with all of my running friends so I could track them. Jen Smith and I were running it together. It was her first Boston. So we had matching hot pink shirts because I was diagnosed with breast cancer. So we had matchy outfits from head to toe.
Yep.
And very last minute, when she found out that I was no longer running Boston, she made me a fighter shirt. So my
Oh.
running hot pink tank top said fighter on the front. My favorite number is 25, and my name was on the back. And she brought that to me that weekend and she goes, this is your shirt for race day. So I wore that to the hospital, went and had my port surgery. I have a group of girlfriends that I run with in East Greenwich that a couple of them reached out to me and said, hey, we're going up to the marathon. Don't know if you're up to it, but we'll come get you and you can come up. So that's exactly what I did. I got out of surgery, went home and rested for 2 or 3 hours, and then jumped on a train and went to Boston and watched my friends finish. So I went to Marathon Monday.
You made it.
I made it.
Yes. I'm honestly very impressed that you had that energy. Like good for you.
Yeah, when the numbness wore off, I got to admit I was extremely sore and there was some pain there and some throbbing, but nothing that a doctor would have said I couldn't go do. So I went and had dinner and watched my friends finish, and it was a perfect way to end a day that I didn't plan. I was very happy that I could be there.
Yeah, you were still involved in the whole Boston festivities. You got the before.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, not the actual, but that's so awesome that you were there for your friends and that you
I
could
saw
still
them. I saw
enjoy
Maurice
the
come
energy.
down. Maurice was on the other side. And when you're at the finish line, I'm literally like right before the grandstand. We were right along the road there. And I'm like screaming, Maurice, Maurice. And he's on the other side. He cannot hear me. He is just like, so I was like, there's Maurice. And then I saw Jay. Duncan, and I saw Jen finish. Like I saw so many people finish, and it was amazing. I was just like, okay, this makes me this just fulfilled me for not running it. This is amazing. So it was great. Yeah,
that's wonderful. Well,
it's amazing. What a day! What like a couple of months of waves. On the Runs podcast, Tokyo Marathon, then cancer, and then you're gonna run Boston, and then no, you can't, and then you make it to the finish line. And
love how you snuck On the Runs podcast in there.
Of course, that was the big thing. That was number one.
Subtle.
I know, because like right now, this whole episode that we were hoping to do in the fall was going to be talking about coming off of Berlin.
Yeah,
and
we were talking about. Yes, you're right. We're gonna do like a recap or a recrap about your 6-star medal.
Yeah. And like, here we are recapping about how I fought for life. It's like, who knew? Who knew? You just
definitely
don't
deserve a medal for that.
For real. I think I've received more than a medal so far. I mean, I've the amount of people, the support that you guys I can't even get into how many amazing things were just randomly sent to my home. Dinners being ordered and sent to my house, and factor meals being delivered, and people calling me and saying, order dinner at the restaurant tonight, we're going to pay for it. Like because Scott was literally taking care of me all the time. It was like that term falling back in love with your spouse happened because I could have not done this without him. He has literally done so much for me. And with surgery, we'll jump to the whole thing on surgery, but literally I was unable to do anything for myself coming out of a double mastectomy. And like, he's literally done it all. Yeah. It's yeah.
Shout out Scott, you hero.
I think we got to shout out your dad too, because here's the thing. There's like only 2 people who from our pod fam who have my actual phone number. You're one of them. Pterodactyl doesn't even have my phone number, believe it or not. So
I have your phone number. Do I count?
No, you're my co-host.
I never use it though.
Yeah, no, you never use it. So, but the one of 2 people who do is you, Candice, and you call me, you text me, when I'm traveling, and you call like, oh, I know Eric's driving for 3 hours. You call and you fill me in with everything. So you told me stories about your dad and how your dad's doing a few things for you. I think cold capping was one. And then you also told me how, like, you mentioned you're fighting for your life, but you got really ill shortly after Boston in May, didn't you?
So I got sick because I was highly allergic to my chemo drugs. So the chemo, I'm highly allergic to taxine. So my whole regiment was Taxol, Carbo, which are like abbreviated names, and Keytruda, which is an immunotherapy. So Taxol is a taxine metal-based drug. And I went into chemo the very first day, and they gave me a little bit of pre-med, which is like a steroid Benadryl, because they don't know how you're going to react. And they gave me the first bag of chemo drugs, and within 10 cc's, I went into anaphylactic shock. My lungs crushed. I was like, can't breathe. Like I was like, Scott's like, push the button, and the nurses, I mean, they are unbelievable how fast they work on you. They all ran in and they're like, we're going to give you a high dose of this. One's looking, my blood pressure went from like 124 to 179 within like 5 seconds. It was like,
oh my God, Candice.
it was bad.
Not to compare, by the way, but that is what happens to me when I have dairy. Yes.
A terrible allergic reaction. Yes. I'm sorry I laughed.
A lot of people think I'm lactose intolerant. No, I'm definitely allergic. And what you are describing is exactly what happens to me.
It's the casein. Yeah.
It's,
holy shit,
so
though.
it's terrifying for anyone to feel like you can't breathe. So that happened day one. They stopped the drip. They gave me some pre-meds. They waited 30 minutes. My oncologist, they called him and he said, try her on a slower drip. Let's see if we can get it in there. The reason being is that is the cheapest version of that drug. The next one is a very expensive bougie drug called Abraxane. So after the second time they tried to give it to me and I went into anaphylactic shock response too, they now pulled me off of everything. And then the next week I went back, they started the Abraxane. And I was on that drug for 4 weeks until I had another allergic reaction. And then after that, they had to pre-med me every time I went in. I was very drugged up at the beginning of every single chemo treatment. So I never got to drive myself. I was there for 4.5, 5 hours every day. But I went, but the whole goal was to get rid of it. So that's what I was doing. And every person that brought me, I surprised them with an activity. Nobody knew what was coming. And anybody that brought me, I had an arts and a craft, or we did something fun. So once I came out of my comatose state, I had something fun for us to do for like 2 hours while we were there. So
Candice,
I had so much fun with all my friends and family bringing me because they all didn't know what was coming. I bought everybody a matching bracelet through Pure Vita, gave that to them on that day to say thank you for taking the time out to bring me.
So, question for you. You said you had 12 weeks of the chemo and your immunotherapy. How many days a week were you doing chemo? So, was it like 5 days a week you had to go in for it for 12 full weeks? Or did you do like every couple of days? I'm just trying to wrap my head around like how many times was your body like put into this terrible situation of like trying to adapt to all the drugs and oh my gosh.
Sure. So I went in for blood work on Mondays to make sure my levels were high enough to get chemo on Tuesday. So I would only get chemo on Tuesday. And then my immunotherapy was every 3 weeks. They would just give it to me on a chemo day. Because they can't give you immunotherapy every day, every time you go. So I've had 4 fusions of immunotherapy and I've had 12 rounds of chemo. And we finished that on July 16th. That was my last fusion day. So
all right, because oh my gosh, I feel for you, just and your body like adapted to it too, and it just caused that allergic reaction with the second drug. Oh, Candice, oh no.
No, I was allergic to it the whole time. They just had to pre-med me to not give me any symptoms. So like Eric can understand, if you give somebody a very high dose of Benadryl and then feed him some dairy, he's probably not going to have a reaction like he would if he didn't have something or a steroid in his system to counteract it.
I've never thought of that, but I'm not going to test it.
No,
don't do it.
You have your non-dairy cheese now. You're good. You don't need to worry about
cheese. I heard nut cheese is supposed to be great.
I've never heard of nut cheese. Is that
you're calling it nut cheese now?
It's made out of cashews.
It's
but now we're gonna call it nut cheese because it just sounds so funny. So
I love
that's all Eric can have is nut cheese.
Yeah, this is my brown story, nut cheese. There you go, guys. Like,
that's perfect.
So a lot of things have happened, but one really cool thing that happened was part of our pod fam. It's amazing. We know Erin, who we just had on for this month, and she's from the Will Run For podcast, right? And she has breast cancer. Well, we've been friends with her for a long time, her whole Will Run For family. And every year they put on a virtual 5K. And when I found out they were going to raise money this time for breast cancer, I was like, I need to tell you. I don't remember if I connected you to their podcast before then, but I know I connected you for that race and you signed up for the virtual 5K. And I remember watching you there. You had a whole crew in Rhode Island running the virtual 5K on the live Zoom that Will Run For did. And you were part of it. And then you built a connection with Erin.
Yes, I did. She's amazing. Yeah, that was a lot of fun. I reached out to my friends and family, told them that we were going to get together. Jen Smith did register for it. Her and I both got the wooden medals, that was just super cool. And they sent us a little care package. And
like a sticker somewhere.
so yeah, that was fun. We did it on my local bike path here, and yeah, yep, there it is.
It's a
I love
virtually
it.
live.
I love it. So yeah, we ended up having that morning together. We all virtually did the race together. Some walked and some ran. But yeah, it was really nice to like kind of give back. That was the first charity that I was able to like do something for. We were fundraising for Unite for Her. And all of that money and proceed went to that organization. So yeah, and Erin and I have talked pretty consistently since then. We message each other, we keep each other solid. I check in with her, see how she's doing. She does the same for me. But yeah, it's nice to know that other people close by understand where I'm at and what I'm going through. And it's not just emotional and sad and hard. I mean, there are some really great moments where you kind of laugh at it. It's like, oh, I got my boobs cut off because they're killing me. Like you try to make jokes out of the situation because you only got this one life. I mean, you can choose to be in one place or the other. So her and I kind of bounce some things off of each other.
That's amazing.
For you guys, yeah.
During this time, are you able to run? Are you allowed to run? Are you just going on walks? What are you doing activity-wise?
I ran through the whole time I was in chemo, and my doctors were like, it definitely was at the capacity before. It was less. I think I didn't do anything over 5 miles at a time. Some were 3 miles, some were 4. I've listened to my body. When I felt yucky, I stopped and I walked home, or I ran home and felt great. But yeah, my doctors were like, you're still running. Like they were really blown away by that. And I just told them, I said, I have to keep my heart healthy if I want to make it through all this treatment. Like if I'm laying down, gaining weight, not taking care of my body, staying healthy, I mean, how am I going to fight these drugs? Like that was how my mind was wired through this. So yes, I did run through the whole time. I can't run now, but I was running during that time. So that definitely helped me mentally get through the harder days for sure. It made me look forward to it.
Yeah, absolutely. Especially if it's such a passion of yours. If you get to continue doing what you love through something that is just, it's not fun. Let's just put it that way. It's a bag of suck.
Yeah.
So if you can
really
just keep doing something that you love and it is keeping you healthy, it's going to help you in the long run. So I'm glad you were able to do that.
And I believe truthfully that like, if I hadn't built a foundation of health and been active and had such a strong heart, because they do an EKG on you before you start immunotherapy. They got to see what they're starting with. So when I went for that, and by the way, guys, this is awesome to hear as runners. So the lady is giving me the echocardiogram and she's watching my heart and all this stuff. And she puts her hand on my leg at one point and goes, I almost called a tech in here. I've never seen anyone your age. Usually when you hit 40, your valves don't stick as well. She said that my valves were sticking like a 5-year-old, that my heart was in the best health. And then she turned around and goes, I've never seen such a symmetric heart rate ever. She said it was so perfectly rhythmic that I was like, I'm a runner. I don't know what to tell you. So now
it's got rhythm.
I'm telling all my friends, I'm like, guys, keep running. We're going to have the best heart ever. Heard that right from the best. So right from the professional. But yeah, so that was a big thing for me, was making sure that I kept moving. And I think that being where I was, God totally put me in this place for a reason. I don't think that I was put here to have a bad thing happen to me. I think there was something positive that must have come out of this, and we can talk about that in a minute. I kind of debunked the medical system of treatment. So that's something to be really cool and proud about.
Well, before we get back into your journey of the summer until present time, I still want to pump the tires for our pod fam. So February 6th was your first ever podcast with On the Runs.
Yes.
Since then, you've become quite the podcast, expert. You're a veteran. You've been on quite a few. And in the summertime, shortly after that virtual 5K, Letty Lundquist had you on her podcast. How was that?
It was awesome. And the content was so different from ours, which I like. I think that when you do a podcast, there's a point of what you're doing it for. It's you want to get the message out there. You want to provide support and knowledge to people that are listening to it. And I want to support my running friends that have a podcast. Why not? Like, why not get it out there? But yeah, Letty is great. She actually had a really good amount of questions pre-op to us even getting on the conversation. And she knew exactly what she wanted to go over. It was very regimented, and it was context just towards my beginning results of being a woman and getting a breast cancer diagnosis. So it felt really good for me to actually talk about it with someone other than my family. And I think it really did give me a sign of hope too. And I felt more support from that, which mentally keeps you sharp, you know?
Mm-hmm. I listened to it. I thought it was a wonderful episode. You were a natural at this.
I don't know.
And of course,
I know.
We love Letty
from
too.
the best.
Letty has a wonderful
Pat
podcast,
myself
but
on the back there.
I particularly liked your episode.
Thank you. Well, I love all your episodes, so this is just...
I wasn't fishing for compliments, but thank you.
I know you were. Oh. But yeah, Letty's she's really, really great. And she's been a big support for me. She checks in on me every week. I check in on her.
Yes. Oh my God, that's so cool.
Oh God, we talk all the time. We text each other. We're on each other's phones. Like we text each other.
I owe her a phone call because she wants to work together and we haven't made it happen yet. I go, after the summer, I owe her a message. I'm sorry, Letty, but we will be working together.
Yeah, she's great. She's really great.
It is my fault. Yes. I'm not doing my homework assignments. I'm sorry, Erica.
We're not here to talk about my homework assignments, so let's move on.
Erica, why don't you bring us into the summer? And then you can start where you were going to go, Candice. But before I stop you rudely.
No, you're good.
So you said you finished treatment July 16th. Was that the date? So where did you go from there? What was next?
So I had a couple of weeks off. So I got on a plane and went with my family down to Florida for 9 days.
Wonderful.
In the summer?
In the summer.
What?
Did you get to go to the coast? Were you swimming? Stay cool at least?
Yeah, my parents have a nice home right on the water down in Florida. Nice. So they were up here because they're up here most of the summer. So we went down there. My brother runs a business right in that same town. So we went down. We land right in the city where they live, right on the tramway. It's really cool. And their house is like 7 minutes from the airport. Fun. We went there. We went and stayed in Tampa, Riverview area. I got to kayak with manatees and dolphins, and we went down. We did all kinds of stuff. But yes, it was like the devil's armpit. It was so freaking hot down there that like every day I was in the pool, in the water, in the AC. I was like, I could not live here year round. It was just so warm. But yeah, we went on vacation. I needed to mentally get away from the house. Away from my bed, away from the normal scenery. Yeah, I needed to get away. So we went away for 9 days, and knowing and thinking I was coming home and jumping back into chemo. So that's
a little break is what you need. A mental break, a physical break, some relaxing, some sunshine.
She just decided to take a break in the devil's armpit.
I really did. Well,
that was beautiful.
I will admit too, there was a morning I did the Panda Posse, Maurice's Panda Posse 5K. So I was registered. I didn't know what week chemo was going to end, right? So they have these weeks, they're called like a setback week, where if your immune system numbers are too low, you don't have chemo that week. And they push it out a week. They got to give your body a week to kind of get
bounce back.
Yeah. So I had a couple of setback weeks. So I ended on the 16th, and it happened to be when I would be in Florida was when the Panda Posse 5K was. So I messaged Maurice and I was like, hey, I'm going to do it when I'm in Florida. I asked him about the shirt because I was like, I'll wear my shirt down there. And he's like, I won't be able to get it to you till you get back. I'm like, okay. So I went down there that morning and did the Panda Posse 5K virtually, sent some messages to him. And so that was cool. I got to get that done too while I was down
Amazing. There. Oh, yeah. The support of the pod fam. It really does warm my heart. You guys are so sweet.
Well, we all know Maurice is like your number one biggest cheerleader, no matter what. And I was like, there was no way I was missing that. If I couldn't physically be here, I was out there doing it with them. So
I'm so glad you got to. We do.
So much love to you, Mo.
So you mentioned cold capping earlier. At what stage in your treatment was that happening? And tell us a little more about it. I honestly can't say I know too much about what it actually does.
Sure. So, a gentleman from England, he had his wife had been the system I used was called Paxman,
Mhm.
and a gentleman that is from England had a wife who was diagnosed with breast cancer, lost her hair. She went through a very hard time with that image
Yeah.
changing. So he created this system, and there's a few different ones. One's called Penguin, Paxman, but I went with Paxman. So when I met my nurse navigator, before I started treatment, they told me that if I wanted to preserve my hair the best I could, or if I was going to lose all my hair, regardless, using it, it makes the hair come back easier because chemo
Oh,
pretty much fries the hair cuticle from the inside, the hair follicle. It gets cooked, and that's how your hair
I
comes
see.
out. So this system is created where you wash your hair the morning of chemo, you put conditioner in, you leave it wet. I would braid it, go
Mhm.
in, spray bottle it again, and a gel cap goes over your head. And there's like an avatar tube that kind of comes out the back. It's kind of
Okay.
freaky, but it's cool. And it sucks into a machine when you're there. And the system is $2,400. Insurance does not cover it. I
Ooh.
had applied for it and I ended up getting a little bit of money off. And my dad, when I told him about it, I said, I don't know if I can justify this. I don't know how long I'm going to be working. And he was like, do not worry about it. Whatever you need, we're doing it. Just do
Oh.
it. So, and I'm glad I did because I lost about 20%. Like my hair is just starting to grow back under here. I have a lot of
Uh-huh.
baby hairs. And in between my head, I have a lot, I still shed right now, but, and what it basically does is it freezes your head. I take the cap off. I have a sheet of ice on
Oh
my
my
head it
gosh.
literally freezes your head below 30 degrees. And it gives you an instant migraine. It gives you some nausea for like the first 5 or 10 minutes, but then your head is so suppressed that you can't feel it anymore.
Oh my
So,
gosh.
and how it works is they put it on your head 30 minutes before chemo starts, and they get that on your head in freezing. They start chemo, and then once chemo's over, that cap stays on for 90 minutes after. So
Wow.
it keeps the head suppressed and freezes everything. And then once I'm done that 90 minutes, they unplug me and
Mhm.
I have to slowly, because people have ripped that off and their hair it
Oh
just
my
rips off because
gosh.
it's
Oh,
frozen.
that sounds
So you've
terrible.
got to kind
Mhm.
of get your fingers under it. And that's why you put the conditioner. It helps take it off.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So,
So it just
um,
like freezes the follicle to preserve it, because if your body's just like burning it from the inside, you're
yeah.
combating it from the other side. Oh, wow.
Yep. And
That
there
is
are
such a
some
cool
women
concept.
that it doesn't work. Some women lose like
Mhm.
50% of their hair. Some people lose all of their hair. But I
Mhm.
was willing to take the chance because the majority of the women that used it kept like 50% or more of their hair. So I
Okay.
figured, well, and this wasn't about image. Okay. Let me just make this like clear. This isn't about me worrying about what I was going to look like. Yes, I love my hair. I get compliments on it all the time. Yes, I have pretty hair. But I did it because I have three
I
kids
do
at
too.
Yes, you do. Yes, you do.
Shut up,
I have
Eric.
kids at home, and I really didn't want them to see the images when women walk around and you are, or men, and you're in cancer treatment. You have
Yeah.
no eyebrows, you lose your lashes, you lose your hair.
Yeah.
Everybody just automatically looks at you like, oh, that person is sick. So if everybody else sees it that way, it's going to be even harder on my kids to come
No,
home every
I
night and
I
see
totally
mom like
understand.
that. So a lot of it was because of that as well. I was like, if I can somehow fake it till I make it any way
Yeah.
I can so that nobody really knows what I'm going through or how hard this is, it might make it easier. And I was able to keep a good amount of my hair. So I'm very thankful that it works. So,
Okay. So you did this all throughout your 12 weeks of chemo.
yeah.
What happened after? What else did you have to do for treatment?
So I was supposed to go. So when I came back from vacation, I went for an ultrasound. And
Okay.
no, before I left for vacation, I went for an ultrasound because my oncologist couldn't feel my tumor for the last two checkups. So I would go
Okay.
every 3 weeks. And when I went the last 2 weeks prior to chemo ending, he's like, I can't feel your tumor. So let's check. So we went in for an ultrasound and they could not detect my tumor at all. It was gone.
Okay.
So when I got back from vacation, he said, let's go ahead and do the MRI. So we went and did an MRI. And again, they could not find it. They only found the little bio metal clips that they put on when they do your biopsy. Those were kind of floating in my breast tissue. There was like no tumor there. Yeah,
Okay.
they were just kind of in there.
But
So
that's good news. That's good news. No
this is
tumor.
very good news, because as far as imaging was concerned, I had reached PCR, which is a pathological complete response, telling them that I responded well to chemo.
Oh,
So
okay.
after the MRI, I met with my oncologist and he said, what are our options? Because the next step was I was supposed to go through the hardest of the chemo drugs, which was doxorubicin, called AC. It's every other week. It's called the Red Devil drug. It's like in a big syringe. It's bright red. It's very intimidating. And that one would have wiped my hair out. That one was that was the one that was gonna seal the deal of everything. So I met with him and he said, so do we do the AC? It looks like cancer is gone. Do we not do it? So we opted to not do the AC treatment. It has a 1% chance to give you cardiomyopathy, 1% chance of leukemia. It can wipe out your thyroid.
Holy shit.
There's so many things that can come out of that they, we decided to go to surgery. So I waited a month. You have to wait a month after chemo to get your body healthy enough to recover from surgery.
Okay.
And we did go in and do a double mastectomy, and pathology was done at that time. So that was what we did on the 29th of August. So that was my next stage in the process, was that.
Gotcha. So how are you recovering right now? It's about a month past your surgery, and how are things going?
I'm doing really good. This week's been really, really good. That is by far been the hardest thing I've ever done. I had all three of my kids naturally back to back. I would have taken all three of them back to back over the pain I had over the first 2 weeks.
Oh my gosh.
It was unreal. But, not being able to wash yourself, wipe yourself, like I'm literally looking at Scott for everything. I couldn't put my clothes on. I couldn't move my arms. I was cut from one side to the other. They take your lymph nodes out. My armpits were numb. Like I couldn't feel or do anything. So I was at his mercy, and my mom would come and help, and she bathed me too. I was like, girl, like, let's do this. Like, I got to get clean. But I also had 2 drains on each side. I had 2 drains coming out of my body on each side. So I had 4 drains that were draining out fluid that had to be emptied and measured every day.
Really? Oh my gosh. The maintenance for this. It's blowing my mind, the stuff that you guys have to go through.
It's crazy. And I'm exhausted because I still, after 4 weeks, I have not slept through the night because I have to sleep upright and on my back. I haven't been able to sleep on my side, and I'm a side sleeper.
Oh no.
But now my doctor this week said, if you're comfortable, you can start to sleep on your side, but no compression on your chest. And I'm like, okay. So, but yeah, it's, but I'm doing great. I'm feeling really good now. Everything looks good. I have expanders in. They are expanding my skin because I just got my date today for my next surgery is December 5th. So that is the next big surgery, and that should be the last one. So.
Oh, Candice, you are so strong. I mean, I just can't even imagine going through this, and you still, I mean, I'm sure 2 weeks ago when you were not feeling so good, the smile may have faltered, but
yeah,
today you're looking beautiful and happy, and I hope it's shining through.
Thank you. Yeah.
So you said December 5th, next surgery. That was my next question. What's next? Is there any running plans? Are there any vacation plans? What do you have planned next?
God, you gotta treat yourself.
I know, right? I do have some things coming up. So the Gloria Gemma 5K is this weekend. I can't run yet, but I am walking it with a bunch of friends. My family's all going. We all have fun shirts. So we're going to go and celebrate that on Sunday. I haven't decided if I'm going to do Pell Bridge yet. That is one race I do like to do, which is over Newport Bridge. But I am doing the Stowe 10 miler in Vermont in November. So I'm going up with 3 friends, and we get the same place every year when they stay. My friend gets the same place when she goes up every year. And the first year I did it with them, we all stayed at the Fox Den. So we're going to go and do that in Stowe. And then I'll have surgery again in December, and I'll be laid up for 4 to 6 weeks. But next year I do have the Revel set up. I've registered for May 5th, the Revel
White
in the
Mountain?
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
So that's next year and a few
They
more.
said it wasn't coming back. I called them out. It was. I knew it.
I'm
I'm
glad
so
because I missed
excited.
it last year, so maybe I'll get to go this year.
Yeah, I'm just going to do the half for that because I don't think
I
I
heard
don't
great
know.
things about the half, so that's
Yeah.
probably the way to do it.
Yeah, I haven't I don't want to push my body too much and I don't know if
Yeah.
I'll have the mileage and the endurance under my belt after being so laid up. Plus, you have to remember I start treatment again next Friday. So
Mm.
I still have to go for infusion and get immunotherapy every 3 weeks. So that is going to cause fatigue. That's going to cause some soreness. And,
Yeah.
those things have to be considered. So I figured the half would be, even if I just did a lot of walk running for the next 6 months, that would be a doable thing.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So
So
the treatment that you have to continue, because does this have to go on for the foreseeable future just to keep your cancer in check, or you don't even you're cancer free though, right?
I
But
am.
it's just the recurrence that you're trying to keep at bay. Am I correct in saying that?
Sure. So the thought is that the cancer stayed in one spot, right? Like
Mm-hmm.
you want to believe that the tumor's not moving, no
Yeah.
cells got all over the body. So when you have a tumor that's shrunk to nothing, my oncologists believe that there's no cells that got anywhere. But
Okay.
immunotherapy is given to a lot of cancer patients, especially triple negative.
Mm-hmm.
And yes, I did get a full pathology back clear of cancer from surgery. So I did find that out 3 weeks ago that I do not have cancer anymore. So that
Great.
is amazing.
Yes, great.
And there was no
Yes.
filtration. There was no filtration through the lymph nodes. So that tells them that my cancer stayed in one spot. It did not move anywhere past the lymph node. Immunotherapy, what that does is it makes your immune system sharp.
Mm-hmm.
Where if there are any cells that may have trickled anywhere, it recognizes those cells and destroys them. So
Gotcha.
that's what this is going to do. It's basically putting your immune system into like a supercharge to be like,
Ah,
okay,
okay.
you tapped. So yeah, for 6 months, it's 27 weeks, 9 fusions every 3 weeks. So
Okay.
that's I feel like I've hit the top of that hill and now we're coming down, 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 down.
Okay.
That's where we're at.
I hope
Yeah,
that's it. Let's get you on the other side.
I know.
During this entire time, have you been working?
I worked, yes, until about the third week of May, fourth week.
Okay.
Yeah, I worked until like the end of May. Started chemo in April, and then about 5 or 6 weeks in, I had to like walk away from work because I was pretty fatigued at that point.
How
Mhm.
have they been about that? How's like
Amazing.
overall the entire community, your working community, your family community, your running community? How has everyone been throughout this entire process of this crazy year?
I know, right? My boss has been awesome. I've been working like doing things remotely for him, filling in, going down when I felt good. But he's been awesome. He was just like, take the time that you need and you'll be back before you know it type of thing. Um, my family's been amazing. They've all done everything that they could do to their capacity. Everybody has their own life, right? My sister has young kids. My brother's in Florida. My parents live here. I have so many friends that are family that they have literally stopped the life for a day or did something for me that I never have expectations, but friends that couldn't be here physically have literally sent me a text message just saying, I'm thinking of you. That's the stuff that like fuels my soul. Like I was in bed laying Thursday, Fridays were my red days. I had chemo Tuesday. By Thursday, Friday, I was feeling pretty awful to
Mhm.
the point where like I would close my eyes and my eyeballs would hurt. My eyelids would
Oh
hurt.
my
Like I
gosh.
literally had nothing in me. And I'd be laying there watching some great rom-com or I'm like a rom-com slash serial killer show. There's no middle. I'm like either about all romance or like who killed who. Like I have like very little room for like Deadpool stuff. Like I love superhero. So like but I remember like laying in bed and like watching a show and then my phone would go off and I would get that, hey, I'm thinking of you. How are you? Can you go for a walk tomorrow? And like I do not think at all that I would be where I am if it wasn't for the support of the people that I have in my life and the strangers that I don't know that reached out that were just like, I mean, the running community, guys, as we know, there's nothing like it. Like, nobody is out to get anyone. Everybody's there to help and love and support. It's just, yes, thank you, Lord, for bringing running into my life, because it literally has, it put me into a place where I was able to fight this fight, have the support I needed, and come out of this the way I am. I don't think I could have done it without it. So,
Candice. Oh, that is such a wonderful thing. I'm so happy you said that, because it really is true that the running community just brings such great things into people's lives, and I'm glad that it could help you fight your cancer, just bring some light to your life, and have a wonderful support system behind you.
Yeah, it's been unreal, really. Like, even you guys, like, it's just, you meet people, and like, I think of you guys every day. Like, people think of me every day, and all it is like just being good people, just being there. It's like, it's such a blessing to like shine even in the hardest moments, and then people just gravitate to that. You gravitate to the people that you're drawn to. And I feel like even throughout this, there's been people that have taken a back seat, because don't get me wrong, cancer diagnosis brings people closer, but it also pushes people away. Where, what if Candice doesn't make it through this and I'm close to her? How bad is that going to hurt when she's no longer here? People really do take that back seat and say, I can't really do a lot.
Oh man.
You know, and that's okay too. There's nothing wrong with that. You got to protect yourself, and people will do what they can do. And that's been totally okay, you know. But people do take a back seat with it, because it's scary. It's scary.
It is. It's more unknown. Like, the unknown is scary. So
yeah.
I hope that I can be one of those people for you that will shy away from the unknown and just gravitate towards you, because you really are a light. I don't know what else to say.
I know. Thank you. I appreciate you so much. It's just, yeah, it is. This whole thing has just been nuts, but I'm very, very thankful to still be here. And I know the odds are not on my side with this type of diagnosis. I know that it has a very high chance of coming back within 6 months. We could be back here. So it's like, I'm going to live every day. I'm going to keep doing all the things. I'm going to go and enjoy life. That's it. That's all you can do. I can't sit here being afraid that it's going to come back, or I'm going to lose out if it does. You know?
True. So true.
So
got to make a t-shirt that says that.
Let's do it.
Let's do it.
And put Stoolie like on the back or on the corner. Like, we got to get him in there.
He's a sneaky Stoolie. He goes right on the back, right behind the neck where the hood covers, but he's a sneaky Stoolie. I'm not going to turn around. I got cables.
He's got to be a small Stoolie.
No, he's perfect the way he is. Like, Candice, you're amazing. We love you.
Wow. We do.
But I want to keep talking. Let's talk about a few more positive, amazing things you've done. Okay. So one, you're a podcast expert now. You've had quite the year. You've made many podcast experiences. What are some of the other podcasts you've been on where people can go and listen to you?
Sure. So of course, Letty, the running marathon podcast, she's got really great diverse episodes, and with On the Runs, I feel like you guys have such a great, how do I word this? So your podcast to me is constantly a motivational piece with so many different runners, and because no episode is the same, even though we're all doing the same thing in different dynamics, no one's story is the same, and it's over 100 episodes. So thank you for that. Like, that every week keeps us excited. And then the one I was on this week was Cut Through the Noise. So his name is Dave Turand, and he does trainings for different corporations and commercial companies. So my husband's company, he goes there and trains a lot of the sales and the sales team there. I met him at a Christmas party, and we started talking, and him and his wife started following me on Instagram. I started following them. Well, they didn't know I had cancer. They didn't know until the day that I posted the photo of my mastectomy. And his wife was like, "Did you know Candice had cancer?" And he's like, wait, what? And then he went on and he reached out and was like, God, your story is so inspirational. And his podcast is geared towards a lot of business owners, CEOs, the business world. And he thought this would be a really cool pod episode to do. So if you want to get some knowledge on motivational podcasts, spiritual, he has a huge array of different people that have gone through, thinking of suicide, thinking about the dark and the positive to being a business owner. Like there's so many different things on his pod that I was like, wow, this is going to be a cool episode to launch October. So those are the ones I've been fueled into. And then I have one that I'm going to be hopefully recording, I think in the next week, for a one in Rhode Island. It's the Roadie podcast. So I think that is the next one that I'm going to kind of talk and see if we're interested in doing an episode there. So
cool.
But yeah, if there's any way that I can get the message out there that you are not alone, ladies and gents that are going through this journey, in all cases and not all this is not a death sentence. This is not meaning that it's end of life. In all cases, there is hope and there is ways to live your life positive, even though you feel like everything is coming down on you. And that's what I'm hoping that we'll be able to reach people to maybe get motivated and think, well, I'm sick, but maybe I could get out there and do something. That is the point of this. So
that's it. That's the podcast. That's the perfect ending point. Unless what else? What you got? Anything else?
But we have more.
Okay, good. I'm like, I'm not chiming in. That was the best thing ever. I'm just gonna leave it there.
Should that be the end?
Well, I don't know. It's wonderful.
Well, Candice, I've enjoyed this past year chatting with you all the time. Text messages, phone calls. It's been awesome getting to be a part of this. You've taken me along for the ride. I think you've taken me along more than Erica. Like Erica's kind of been living vicariously through me, filling you up to date, right?
I mean, I did get to see you at Anchordown where you were still volunteering for 24 freaking hours in the midst of all of your treatments and
we had
whatnot.
that epic trail cleanup day.
Yep.
We did. That was a lot of fun.
You're just out there doing it all.
That was a lot of fun.
I think if somebody were to pass by you and talk to you, and as long as you don't tell them you have cancer, they wouldn't know, because you seem to be, at least around people, positive, your normal self, always positive, optimistic, cheerful, supportive. I don't think people would know. So I think you have a great attitude. You have the right approach
100%.
to this. You're tackling this. You're doing everything right. The community is stepping up. Your husband's stepping up. Your dad's stepping up. Everybody's stepping up. You got amazing kids as we met them, even though I call her Wisconsin. Shout out to Madison. Everybody's great. You're an amazing member of our pod fam. I'm so happy to have you here. And thank you for coming on and sharing this journey, because what a wild year it's been.
It's been a wild year. And thank you guys. I feel very blessed to be part of your podcast and being friends and running into you guys. And yeah, ADU was awesome, Erica. You did great. It was under those conditions. That was a very rough night. I mean, our tents were blowing around, and that was a one for the books. But you came through as a trooper for sure, and cleanup was great.
Thank you.
Just love seeing you guys.
I can't thank you enough for just all the volunteering you do. Like, you were just so good to us. I know you would have liked, you might have liked to be out there. Like, I don't know if Anchordown is really your style, but I mean, just the fact that you put in so much time. And the watermelon,
amazing. I heard about that.
Yeah,
Jen watermelon queen.
Jen Smith and I did that the day before the race. We were at my house cutting up 8 or 10 watermelons, bagging them, cutting them up in cubes and slices for everyone, because that is one of the favorites. So it was totally worth it, and less sticky on race day, because nothing's worse than having sticky fingers with no sink to wash your hands. So yeah, that
exactly.
The pre-op cutting was worth it. So glad
we appreciate you. We appreciate you so much, more than I can even tell you.
Thank you.
Guys, I really hope you enjoyed that. The unfortunate circumstances to get her back on the podcast, but she's amazing. She's one of our favorites, Candice Burroughs, on the On the Runs podcast.
Perfect.